Welcome to Global Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa, where we discuss pertinent issues of peace and sustainability in Africa and around the world. Today, we have the pleasure of having Sam Pitroda, who will be taking us through a very important topic, which is redesigning the world. And we are looking forward to the new world, a better world, or a combination of both. And of course, I've also known Sam Pitroda through the World Intellectual Wisdom Forum. And he is an investor. He is a telecommunication engineer and an entrepreneur. He is popularly known as the father of India's computer and IT revolution, as he helped in bringing computerization in India. He was also an advisor to the Prime Minister during Dr. Manmohan Singh's tenure. The floor is yours, Sam Pitroda. It's a pleasure having you, and I welcome everybody on this call and to participate as actively as you always do. And if you are not speaking, please mute your microphone. And then when the time comes for questions and answers after his talk, then you can of course raise your hand and you can also put your question or comment in chat. So thank you very much indeed, Sam. Welcome.
Thank you, George. Really appreciate the opportunity. First of all, my compliment to you and your colleagues for this forum, which is focused on peace and sustainability in Africa. All of these are very important topics. Peace today is on everyone's mind because of what is going on in Ukraine. Sustainability is also on everybody's mind because of global warming, climate control, and the challenges we all see related to our environment everywhere. Africa is even more important to the world today than ever before. African population is increasing. Challenges are many. It is a very rich continent with huge amount of potential, minerals, mines, human capacity. And the next big growth in the world is going to come from Africa. So it is time for the world to pay attention to Africa more than ever before. So I'm delighted that I have this opportunity to talk to you and your colleagues. Like you said, George, my background is telecom. So I see world through connectivity. I spent my life, almost 57 years, in telecommunications, in bridging the divide between developed and developing world. Telecom to me is the key to future prosperity. I remind myself that transistor was born after I was born. I was born in 1942 and transistor was born in 1947. The amount of innovations coming out of transistor has transformed human civilization. Radio to satellites to fiber optics to smartphones to computers, software, everything we do today in any form or shape has to do with the invention of transistor. Medical devices, machines. Now we talk about robots, AI, digital currency. All of these things have roots in technology, transistor. And on one hand, it is transforming our lives. On the other hand, the divide between rich and poor is increasing. So during COVID, like many of us, I was also locked up at home. And I decided to focus on writing a book on redesigning the world. Now, that's a pretty broad topic. First question would be, what does it mean to redesign a world? How can you talk about redesign? Do you understand the present design? What should be the next design? And there were lots of questions that came to my mind. Having been in isolation and having had access to computers and big libraries and pool of information, I decided to write a book outlining part my experiences, my journey, and how I saw the world today and world going forward. So I'm delighted that George has given me this opportunity to talk to you about the idea of redesigning the world. The world we live in today is focused a lot more on geopolitics, finance, power, and profits. Everyone is essentially focuses their day-to-day activities on these 4 key parameters. What is going on in the world in terms of US power, Chinese power, Soviet Union, what is happening in Europe, all of these things get global attention, rightfully so. Today, war in Ukraine is on everyone's mind, because if it explodes and gets out of hand, and some strange reason it leads into nuclear confrontation, world will pay a very heavy price for it. At the same time, everyone knows that climate control is also getting out of hand. Temperatures are increasing, global weather patterns are changing, and it will have huge impact on the world going forward. Inequality has increased in the world. Very few people have lots of money, and lots of people are very poor. This inequality is of concern to everyone. Global production has moved to China, and Western world is not producing anything anymore. That is of great concern to local jobs, local people. Supply chains have become very complicated, and one little geopolitical imbalance paralyzes the entire supply chain globally. So looking at all of these things, we need to really understand the root cause. And different people have different interpretation. I have one view. This is not the only view. I'm not an expert at these things. But I want to put on a table a thought that the world we designed, world we operate in, world we follow, the rule of law that all of us consciously, unconsciously adapt to, needs to be re-examine in light of hyperconnectivity. What is hyperconnectivity? Hyperconnectivity is all these things that come together that essentially gives us huge amount of communication capabilities in the palm of your hand. This is part of hyperconnectivity. It is fiber optics, satellites, computers, cell phones, smartphones, AI, robotics, cloud computing. All of these things put together gives us new tools that we never had before. For the first time in the human history, we are all connected. 20 years ago, to call Africa was a big challenge. Now you can call anywhere in Africa, anytime at almost zero cost if you are on WhatsApp. What does this connectivity mean to human civilization? Is the question that I have been asking for quite some time. Because this connectivity is about democratization of information. It is about decentralization of implementation. It is about demonetization of services. It is about communication, content, curation, context. So when you look at all of these things together, we realize that hyperconnectivity is having huge impact on our business, retail, banking, trade, distribution, delivery, education, health services, finance, governance. All of these things are beginning to change in a very special way. And that's why it is time to really relook at the design of the world. So according to me, the world was last designed just around the time I was born 80 years ago. During World War II, a group of people decided to design the world to recover from the ruins under US leadership, which ultimately resulted in United Nations, World Bank, IMF, WTO, WHO, and all of the other institutions with a framework for everyone to follow. Then world was in ruin. Europe had to be rebuilt. Japan had to be rebuilt. India and Africa were still part of a colony, so it didn't matter. China also did not matter. So a handful of European countries with US decided to redesign or design the world. At that time, world was bipolar. You had Soviet Union and you had US. US followed one set of values which were embedded in the design related to democracy, human rights, capitalism, consumption, and military. Soviet Union, on the other hand, followed another set of values, authoritarian government, not give too much importance to human rights, carbon consumption, state control economy, but they also focused on military. So then either you could be part of American dream or part of Soviet Union camp, and world was seen in terms of two camps. Right after that design was put in place, lots of interesting things happen. But this design has done well. It has secured peace to some extent, leaving aside small wars here and there. We don't have World War III. It did lift Europe from the ruins of the war, build Japan, build Europe, and provided global prosperity. Millions and millions of people were lifted out of poverty because of this design. Longevity increased, infant mortality decreased, education expanded. So there are lots of good things that came out of this design. But now, I personally believe that this design has outlived its utility. Why? Because right after the design, world got decolonized. Independence movement led by Mahatma Gandhi in India triggered a whole new force, which ultimately in 25 years decolonized the entire world. African countries became independent. Countries in Middle East, Asia, everywhere, independence became a major ambition. In the last 30 years, China could rise to a level no one ever thought China would rise. At the same time, Soviet Union basically fell apart without a gunshot. So decolonization, rise of China, fall of Soviet Union created a whole new world. At the same time, technology became pervasive. When I came to America in 1964, I had never made a telephone call in my life. I was 22 years old because I was too poor to have telephone. India didn't have many telephones. Now, telephone is a necessity. Everybody has telephone. Then India had probably less than 1 million phones. Today, India has 1.4 billion phones. So technology has been democratized. People have seen refrigerators and air conditioners and fancy cars, and all that has become visible and useful in every country. At the same time, inequality has increased in the country and around the world. Prosperity has increased, but inequality has also increased. So for a while, world became unipolar when Soviet Union ceased to exist. In that unipolar world, everyone thought that America is the only leader. EU will follow the track, and between EU and America, world will find direction. And then came 9/11. I am one of those who believe that if the world was bipolar, there will not be 9/11. So 9/11 really changed America in many ways. America went looking inward, had to provide better security, safety to the people. And then came COVID. No one ever thought that the world will come to halt because of some small virus originated somewhere else and affected the humanity at large. What it tells us is that we are all interconnected, interwoven, interdependent, interrelated. Nothing that happens in one part of the world that doesn't ultimately affect somebody else. So you can't ignore Africa because you are not close to it. Because Africa is going to affect you in many ways, directly, indirectly. if not now, in the future. We are all part of humanity, and we cannot shield each other from our progress and pain. So these 7 things that I talked about has changed the world completely, on top of the hyperconnectivity. So we need some kind of a new thinking. What is that new thinking? What has worked and what hasn't worked? And we all have our own opinions on it, but I believe democracy has worked. But it needs to be taken forward. I believe capitalism has worked, but it needs to be redefined, retweaked. I believe military hasn't worked. We are spending too much time and money on military. I believe consumption hasn't worked because it has created huge amount of pressure on the environment. I believe human rights have worked. We need to take those further. So when I look at the design, I appreciate what we have accomplished, but I also believe it is time to retweak this design. Can I call you back? I'm on a video call. Thank you. So I believe the world needs new thinking, but that can only come if we begin new conversation, because otherwise we are following the existing design where UN, World Bank, IMF, NATO, WTO, WHO basically remains intact, and fine-tuning and tweaking here and there is not going to solve the challenges.
Remain, yeah.
So my request to all of us would be to really begin to think of new ways of handling global challenges related to peace and sustainability. Peace can only come through understanding each other. Peace can only come through improved communication. And sustainability requires a whole new focus on consumption. So the new design, according to me, needs to take democracy to inclusion. World is not inclusive. And a lot of the global conflicts in the past also has roots in exclusion. A group of people feel excluded, there is a conflict, and there is war. History is full of those examples. Today, in a hyperconnected world, we need to realize that people need to be included in all conversations, especially in democracy. There cannot be development without inclusion. But a lot of our democracies are not inclusive. In India, we have caste system. In other countries, there is religious inequality because some people are, even in India, there are Hindu, there are Muslim, there are Christians, there are Jewish, there are Buddhist. In America, we have Black Lives Matter because there is no focus on inclusion. In most of the countries, minorities find that a lot more needs to be done on inclusion. Women are not included in many countries on an equal basis. So first part of the design has to be to build inclusive society at local level, national level, and international level. Second, human rights are not good enough. We need today human needs. Today we know we can produce anything. The key question is, what is that we want to produce? Who do we want to produce for? And I believe we can produce enough food to provide food security to the world. But then you look at what is going on in Africa. There is hunger, there is starvation, and there is no need for it today. We have capabilities to produce enough food for this entire planet. Maybe for 10, maybe for 12 billion people if we want. But we wind up producing only for people who can afford to buy. So we spend $2 trillion a year on military equipment when we know we can eliminate hunger for $200 billion a year. But that is not our focus. And as a result, hunger, starvation, poverty continues. Third, capitalism has created huge amount of inequality. It is an approach that we have taken from top down with the hope that the trickle-down effect will ultimately lift people from poverty, but that hasn't happened. So we need new economy. We need new thinking on capitalism, where we focus more on bottom-up development, decentralization, smaller enterprises, network to scale, local labor, artisan, unorganized sector. These are all big challenges. Today, in the hope of improving profit, Western businesses moved all production to China because they probably didn't want to deal with labor. And as a result, local jobs have vanished. We need to find jobs in democratic countries. If we don't know how to produce in a democratic environment, we will not be able to create jobs of tomorrow. So we need to really redesign capitalism. Consumption is not the answer. Conservation is the answer. Sustainability is the answer that you and your group, George, focus on. We need to really curb consumption to a point. We pay more attention to conservation. Very few people know that one t-shirt you wear requires some hundreds of gallons of water to produce. If that's the case, do I really need 50 t-shirts? Can I live with 5? I mean, those are the questions each one of us will have to ask. Look at the mountain of plastic we have created in the middle of the ocean. That is a result of conspicuous consumption. So we need sustainability and conservation as the key. And finally, military. I don't think it makes sense to go on producing $2 trillion worth of military hardware every year, year after year. I hope as human civilization, we have gotten to a point we can sit across table and sort out our differences. Based on what's going on in Ukraine, it doesn't look like it is ever feasible. But I believe if we work enough for a decade or two, we can build a platform for non-violence world. Unfortunately, our mindset still is that of World War II. We like to build machine guns, heavy artillery, in an environment where wars are fought very differently. Wars are fought on economic front, on natural resources, on social media, on cybersecurity. So we need to really rethink through all of these issues to redesign the world. But then how do you redesign? So I am saying that we accept the old design, respect the old design, appreciate what we have accomplished, and let's collectively build on it. To build on it, we need to create new institutions. You'll be surprised to know that in last 80 years, we have not created one new global institutions of any substance, except maybe international court. Financial systems are still different in every country. We have 150 different currencies in the world. Money transfer is a big, big challenge in the world. Intellectual property, global business, global market is still very local. So we need to really create a lot of new institutions which respond to the new reality of inclusion, new economy, basic needs, sustainability, conservation, and non-violence. These things cannot be done without creating new institutions. But we want to work within the framework with Sustainable Development Goal, which has 17 goals, which I believe are too many. And these things require new thinking. But how do you start? Who is going to pay attention? Unfortunately, those who are in power don't see a need to change because they are milking the system anyway. And those who see a need to change don't have power to change. So you have this contradiction. Rich countries are not going to change because they are becoming richer and richer. Poor countries have no voice. And as a result, we have a Mexican standoff. So what we need is a lot more conversation on what we are doing. What we need is discussion at global level on redesigning the world. It may take 5 years, it may take 10 years, but if we don't begin new conversation, we will not find answers. Answers are there. There are capable people. There are intelligent people. I'm not saying I have the answers, but I want to start a new conversation. We need change agents in individuals, in countries, and we need to really say a design that is 80-year-old needs rethinking. Is UN the ultimate answer? Should UN be restructured? Not just cosmetic fine-tuning, but a whole new way of structuring our design. Look at what is going on with the financial system right now. Everybody is on the edge. Nobody knows where it is headed. Do we really need a global Federal Reserve? Do we need a basket of global currencies and not have 150 currencies? Do we need international patent courts? So you file patent in one place and not in 30 different countries? All of these are very important issues. And new technology allows us to address these very differently. I'll give you an example. In India, we have 42 million court cases pending in local courts and 6 million court cases pending in high court. Now, it's there because of the old design. Can we use digital technology, computerization, AI, machine learning to really sort out these court cases and provide justice to people in 2 years and not 20 years? These are the challenges in front of us. And it requires first to accept the fact that hyperconnectivity is changing everything. Second, to realize that right now, global warming is right staring at us, and we cannot ignore it. 3 institutions we designed 70 years ago need to be restructured. 4, find group of people like us and others more capable to begin new conversation. 4, find change agents. Create global platform of domain experts to really discuss these issues very seriously and come to consensus on a new design. We are all global citizens. Borders don't mean anything anymore. We are all digital citizens, but do we really know the rights of the digital citizen? Do we really understand our roles and responsibilities? What does it mean to live in America, work in India, and get paid in Brazil? What is the idea of residency anymore? I think these are the issues we all need to debate and discuss. We are indeed living in a completely new world. The fact that you and I can talk like this for hours and hours without any expense tells me that the world has changed. 30 years ago, I couldn't make a phone call to Africa. I couldn't make a phone call to India. Sometimes it took 2 days to make a phone call when I came here to America in 1960s. And you couldn't hear a word. And now it's almost free. We are all connected. All 7 to 8 billion people are essentially connected. And I keep asking this question, what does this connectivity mean? Can we take this connectivity and redesign the world to take humanity to the next level? Or we are going to use this connectivity to only increase productivity, reduce cost, profit? That's one way of looking at connectivity, is to use connectivity for productivity and efficiency and cost reduction. Another way is to take humanity to the next level, where I respect every human being, respect every religion, respect your freedom, include you and me in everything, be more open, transparent, responsible, and share resources. Focus on human potential. Focus on prosperity for everybody, equality, dignity, inclusion, freedom be at the core of the new design. New design has to be to benefit everybody and not handful of people. I think it is possible. It may take 20 years. I may not be around to see the new design, but all I want to do is start a conversation. I have great faith in humanity. I've lived in the US for 60 years, and I can tell you there is just tremendous amount of talent in US because best of the best from all over the world come here. That doesn't mean other people don't have talent. Don't get me wrong. But US gives you that platform to operate on a bigger canvas because it's a large country with lots of resources, open mind, lot of diversity. And I believe US must take the lead in redesigning the world. If US took the lead, I think we'll get something done. I invite you all to join us in this huge task of redesigning. I've written a book. It is just a beginning, and it is only there to start a conversation. I keep on emphasizing that I don't have the answers. But I know that because of hyperconnectivity, we need a massive change. We need a change from bottom up. We need a change from top down. We need a change in our institutions, UN, World Bank, IMF, NATO, WTO, WHO. And we need new institutions. We need institutions on inclusion. We need institutions on non-violence. You know, I lived in Chicago for 60 years, and I find that violence hasn't changed in Chicago. We still lose 700 to 800 young people every year because of gunshots. Why? Why is that? Why can't we just solve that problem? We haven't been able to do that. Violence has increased. So I was talking to someone at the university recently, and he said, we do have an institution on violence. I said, no, you need an institution on non-violence. You don't want to study violence. So we are studying violence. We have gun laws which are absolutely not acceptable. And we go on living with the idea that in Chicago, 700 people die every year anyway. We have the largest number of people in prison in America. Why? It's a great country with a lot of education. There is no reason for that many people to be in prison, but it happens. So that's why I think we need focus on redesign. With this, I want to open up for a broader conversation. I want to really learn from you all. And I want to remain in touch and see how we can do our bit to begin this new conversation on redesigning the world. I think this is important at a larger level and not tweaking one little problem on finance, trade, law. It's nice to do those things, but unless and until we look at the grand design, these little things won't make much difference. And I must tell you that US made a substantial contribution in designing the world after World War II. That design has gotten us where we are. Now, collectively, we need to take that design forward so it is good for everybody. This world has to be good for Chinese, Russians, Americans, Africans, Indians, Middle East, Latin America, and you name it. Europe. It can't be just good for one group of people. And that's the redesign is all about. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Sam Pitroda, for this wonderful presentation. We have taken us through a very important theme of redesigning the world based on the 4 parameters that you focused on: geopolitics, finance, power, and profit. But you've also given us actually some of the issues that you've got to consider if we have to improve on the world design that we have at the moment. And so I would like to also continue this conversation.
Can I just add one thing?
Yes, please.
I believe if we somehow succeed in shifting human focus from power and profit to planet and people, everything would look different.
Wonderful.
How do I tell my children and their children that don't focus on profit and power like everybody else is? Focus on planet and people, and you will get profit. You'll be happy. I've learned that at 80. can I teach them at 8? If that happens, we are all done. Okay. But it's a tough task because everybody wants to, chase profits. Everybody wants to chase power. That's how we are trained. That's how our MBA schools teach us. That's the challenge. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much for adding the people and planet to this discussion. Now the floor is open, and I would like to begin with Joe, and then I'll go to Lester. There was a hand before, but disappeared. I think it will come back. But let's start with Joe and Les. Please, Joe, could you begin?
Okay, thank you very much. I really enjoyed this presentation. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. Okay, I just want, there's a verse in the Bible. It says, the love of money is the root of all evil. And from listening to you, what I'm seeing is that, the pursuit of profits, while that's where a lot of problems have happened, because that's where human beings have been forgotten about. And then it becomes about certain kinds of individuals. But the idea that I was having was, and I've thought about this for a while, I really didn't know about the designing of the world. Thank you so much. I learned so much from this. I'm thinking it's about time to audit a lot of systems. That audit is going to, I think, decisively say what has worked and what hasn't, so that we can, because what I'm seeing is, what we're doing is a lot of things we're still doing them even when they are wrong, even when they are leading us further down. You know what I mean? And we're doing them because that's all we know how to do. And nobody has authoritatively said, this isn't working and we need to stop doing this. So I think we need some kind of audit, like a deep audit, on these systems and how they have actually helped and not helped, how they have benefited and harmed, and just honestly and say, okay, we're gonna keep and we're gonna see where it's hurting us. That's where we can begin.
Thanks, Joe. I agree with you, but it's not very complicated. We make it complicated. Okay, all our religious teachings, whether it is Christians, Jews, Hindu, Muslims, they all basically, to me, say same thing. Okay. And that is, happiness doesn't come from money. We need to love everybody. We need to be respectful. We can't hurt human beings. Everything is known. Who is practicing it? It's not rocket science. But when it comes to practicing, we kill each other for money, power. We are mean, conniving, competitive. If we are just decent human beings, enough of us are decent human beings, world will change. So we need change agents. We all know, look, there were people like Mahatma Gandhi. There were people like Mandela. There were people like Martin Luther King. There are examples right in front of us in our lifetime. People who change everything. They didn't have money. They were not richest people in the world. But the richest people in the world want more and more and more. Because we celebrate 400 richest in the world. We don't celebrate 400 best teachers in the world. We don't celebrate 400 best doctors in the world, 400 best mothers in the world, 400 best artists in the world. We never have a list of that. So a child growing up wants to be Bill Gates, wants to be Elon Musk. He doesn't want to be a teacher. He doesn't want to be a decent human being. He says the goal in life is to make a lot of money and do whatever you have to do to make a lot of money. And we are messed up. So I agree with you, Joe, that it has to come from within. Answers are known. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam. And please, Les, could you continue? And then we'll go to Thomas Duffin, please. Les.
Oh, thank you. This has been such a treat. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Les.
So it is a completely new world, and I'm so glad to be connected with this group and to hear your presentation today. In fact, I'd like to add one other change to your list. We no longer rely just on Western knowledge and intellectuals and scholars. And now we have truth from Satya Narayan. I was noticing your name, Satya, is truth, right?
Yes, it is. It is.
And so we're getting truth, and we have people like yourself who are really putting together wisdom of various parts of the world. And in fact, the extent to which the U.S. should lead, I'm a little concerned about that point. But the extent to which
the U.S. has so many,
because we have people flowing here from all over the world, and so there is maybe more of a mixture here
that's
than
right,
in many other places.
That's right. Plus, U.S. universities are good platform,
Yes.
But
Yes.
you see, Lester, the problem is Sam Pitroda is not a billionaire, so nobody will pay any attention.
Yeah.
If
Yes.
Sam Pitroda was, multi-billionaire, they'll all say, "Oh, great wisdom."
Yes. Right.
So I have a disadvantage because I'm an ordinary human being. Okay.
Well, we all are. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the point. So we all need to add. We all need to work together.
Well, I have one other point and then a question. I'll try to be brief.
No problem.
Gandhi emphasized that human rights and duties go together.
Yes.
That we always emphasize human rights, but if we don't have duties, then there are no rights.
Agree with you 100%. 100%. I always tell people that if there was an accident and one little child is bleeding, my human reaction would be to lift him, take care of him, and not ask him, what is your religion?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what is your race? What is your nationality?
Yeah.
It's a human reaction. We all want to help each other.
Yeah.
Genuinely help. That's inbuilt in us. We need to explore that further.
Yes.
We are all good human beings. We don't want to hurt anybody. We all mean well, but something happens to us in the process and we start cheating. We all like to treat everybody with respect because we want to be treated with respect.
Mm-hmm.
But then once we are in power, we forget that.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Well, one final quick question.
Please.
I'm sorry to take too much time.
No problem.
So more practically, who will design the grand design? And I'm wondering, what's the role of the United Nations and various civil society organizations?
No, I think if enough of us talk about it, if we get some traction as a civil society, people will pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Then it will have to be designed at a higher level. But to get to that level, we need some attention.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to come from civil society because those who are in power have no need to change. Why should they change? They are milking the system.
Yeah.
So it will have to come from bottom up. It will have to come from civil society. It will have to come from intellectuals, universities, think tanks, and then it will get attention. It's a long process. It's not going to happen, in a short term because a lot of Western interests are already rooted in this.
Yeah.
But it can happen. And we have to start that process.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lester.
Thank
Where
you.
are you, Lester? Where are you?
In Fairfax, Virginia. I'm about 19 miles from the capital.
Okay, good.
Close enough to see what's going on, but far enough away not to get,
I know Fairfax very well. Thank you. Good.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Les for the question and comments, and of course, Sam for the answers. Now, please, Thomas, would you like to make your comment, ask a question? It's a pleasure having you, of course, on this platform as always.
Thomas is our guru. Thomas?
No, I'm your humble servant.
No,
So
you are our guru. You are the philosopher.
Well,
We
that's
don't understand a lot of things. You make it simple.
Thank you, Sam. Yeah, I want to say thank you, Sam, for a brilliant talk. You know, everyone on this call has appreciated it, and also I want to thank you for 80 years of service that you've given to the planet, not just to India but to all of us. I want to thank Sam also for being part of the World Intellectual Wisdom Forum, which some of you people on this call know about. He said we need to create new structures, new institutions. That's one of the things we're trying to create together, which is to bring the intellectuals together out of their cubby holes and their trench warfare in academia. So many academics are just masters of trench warfare, defending their discipline against other disciplines. What we're trying to do is leverage them out into the etheric azure blue sky of blue skies thinking, and say to these people, look, please help us redesign the world. Sam is co-chairing our Commission on Global Good Governance for that. And that's an important job. We've got inroads to the UN to discuss how we can reform it, working with people that have, people have been thinking about UN redesign for the last 80 years. And so we're in touch with those guys and trying to bring that forward. And I'm really, pleased that Sam is part of that project. I suppose my question I would pose publicly to Sam is, you said right at the beginning of your brilliant talk that hyperconnectivity is changing everything, including international relations. You said that, the old system of international relations needs rethinking. You also said later on in the talk that the problem is that some people are using hyperconnectivity to increase authoritarianism. What's going on in Russia with media censorship, what's going on in China. And we now enter this crazy world of cyber warfare where the Russian GRU has 40,000 people working full-time to plant false stories in the internet. This is how Brexit was run. I'm a victim of the cyber warfare that was done against the European Union. And I would also just say that actually, you said we need new institutions. Well, the European Union was created. It's one of those new institutions we need, where nations come together in peace. The Africa Union is another.
Yep.
So Mike, I think how do we make sure that the guys that are controlling hyperconnectivity are not going to misuse it? I mean, thank God that and this is really important that we think this through, that it's not used for warfare, militarism, and false information. As a peace scholar, this is, the biggest challenge we're facing, I think. So I don't know, what solutions have you got? How can we make sure hyperconnectivity works for everybody, that it becomes a genuine democratization of information and not the pollution of information through lies? And then my final point, this is the philosophical bit, is I think we have to not forget that ultimately the world is a moral project. Keats, the poet, called the world a school for souls. Mm-hmm. We have to make sure that and this is where education comes in, isn't it? That if we teach basic values in our schools and universities, as well as cleverness, mm-hmm. then I think we can make sure hyperconnectivity isn't misused. So could you tell us what the basic values are you'd like to see in the school systems, Sam, and in the universities?
Okay. First of all, Thomas, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate your presence. You are our guru in philosophy and all that. So keep us honest, keep us on track. We need people like you to help us think through. some of these things. So as far as I'm concerned, I believe in Gandhian values. That's how I was brought up. So to me, democracy is very important. To me, human rights are very important. Equality, inclusion, freedom, love, justice. These 8-10 things, truth, trust, are the key to my value system. So if I have to list it again, I would say truth, trust, love, democracy, human rights, freedom, justice, equality, inclusion, diversity. These are all very important values to me. That's how I can have a meaningful conversation with you.
Right.
Because I respect you. I appreciate your diversity. I know I have something to learn from you. Then your next question about social media, digital. I think we have set of human rights well defined by UN Charter. We do not have well-defined rights of a digital citizen. So we have a small group of 5 or 6 of us. We have been working for a year and a half on defining the right of a digital citizen. A very different obligation of a digital citizen. If I'm allowed to be on digital avatar, what are my rights? What are my obligations? How do I use it? What is considered good behavior and what is considered bad behavior? Today, the business model is such that you can hide behind a fake name, start bombarding people, say all kinds of irresponsible things and get away with it. That's not fair. If it's not fair in the real world, how could it be fair in the virtual world? So I think we need to tighten up rules and regulations of the digital world, digital citizens. There are responsibilities that go with the privilege we get on digital platforms. Today, we take the privilege, but we don't want responsibility. And that's not fair. I don't know whether I've answered your question, Thomas.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Sam.
Thank you very much indeed. I would like now to go to Bati Jane, because also gender equality is very important in this new world. So Bati Jane, please, and then we'll go to Elise and then Ronald. Bati, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sam. Very, very fine, Sam. And it was great to hear you once again. It was very insightful conversation.
Thank you.
As you said that you value things, and what I believe is when we talk about agent of change, we are looking for agent of change, then what I believe is youth is the agent of change who can bring change in this world. This youth is going towards violence, and this only youth can be a agent of change. One. Second is women, what I believe, because I just believe woman is one who can make a family, and woman is one who can break a family. So if youth has to be nurtured in a non-violent way, then women should be educated in a non-violent way. So I just believe we need, definitely we cannot bring change in a day or two or 1 year or 2 years, but definitely in upcoming years, if we work on these two sections of the society, that is women and the upcoming generation, then definitely in upcoming year, we can bring change into this world. Second thing, what I have seen is, every street, it's a very practical and very a small point that I am discussing over here. But in every street, if you look around, there is a liquor shop. Near education institution, near hospitals, youth is going there to stress out, right? So can we have a system where in every street we can have some stress buster institution or non-violent institutions? Such kind of things we can think of,
I think
or we
family
can work
is the,
out.
no, I think family is the institution.
Yeah,
Family,
Sam, but
community has to really, solve local problems. Because if communities are not organized, no amount of organization at the national level would help. It is a local problem to be sorted out by local people.
Yeah, agreed, Sam. But if we talk about a family, then this digital system is so vast that 4 members in a family are sitting in the same room, but they are disconnected. They are connected to the outer world, but they are disconnected
Yeah,
with
but
their
then family will have to decide that you cannot be always connected. You got to, take your digital devices off for a while when you eat, when you whatever. I mean, these are all really not very complicated things if you want to solve it. Okay.
Exactly. If you want to.
Yeah, that's
That
it.
is the biggest. Yeah, actually.
So, there's not rocket science, If in your family, you know that 4 people are always on devices, some head of the family will have to say, guys, when we eat, you can't have it. I have my grandchildren, when I go to visit them, and if I'm on phone, my grandson will come and say, Dada, you're not allowed to be on cell phone while I'm with you. Okay, he's right. You need that.
Exactly. And in education system, what I believe is that this love education, value education should be a part of the curriculum.
Yep. And that
That's
also
what
comes from family and community. See, today, everything is centralized. Education cannot be centralized the way it has been centralized. Education has to be decentralized. Education has to do with the community, family, environment, local language, But we have centralized all the education. Salary of the teacher is decided by some central government agent. Can't do that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Please, Elisei, and then we go to Ronald. Thank you very much for joining us, Elisei.
Thank you so much, George. Thank you. Sorry I couldn't get the whole of the talk. I came in a little late. But I would like to join others in appreciation for this inspiring and warming talk. At least the part I heard was quite inspiring. Now, my comment and question is, we are caught up in a dilemma. And the dilemma is some of the very means that we can use to counteract this culture of individualism and profit are actually already invaded. We talked about education, but if you look around now, in most of our developing countries, there is a discouragement of humanities in our schools. Everything is pushing for profit. And the kind of best student who is getting trained is the one who fit to produce the very same way that this corporate world wants. And even the policymakers in most of our countries, because they use a lot of means, they use money, they use pressure, they use all kinds of things, you find they are pushed into this kind of framework. And so education, which was meant to be critical, to be really, emphasizing truth, emphasizing humanitarian values and so forth, is really caught into the same trap. Now, even the digital world, if you look at it, most of children, even before schooling, they are socialized into this world of individualism. They want to spend much more time on the phones. They don't have much time with their parents. And parents, the same way, they try to work hard to put the bread on the table or to send the kids in the best schools, but they do not get to the kids the basic values that should be expected from the family. And this is orchestrated with a lot of strength of money, strength of repetition and pressure. And so we tend to feel like we have no breathing way of getting out of this circle. Now, in the past, some of these challenges were counteracted by social movements. So my question is, Sam, what would be the kind of social movement we need at this particular time and this context to be able to read this, the force that we need to counteract this? So I forgot to introduce myself. Rizal Tagamu is my name. I'm the Dean at the Telecom Institute of Peace Studies and International Relations.
Wow.
So I'm glad to be part of this conversation. Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for your questions. And you are in a very important position to bring about change. You are head of an institution, and we need broader conversation on this. A lot of people are not even aware of the fact that world needs to be redesigned. A lot of people don't understand the importance and power of hyperconnectivity. We need to really broaden our conversation, get many more people to think about it. Ultimately, if we can train our children and grandchildren, our community, our family, to think more about planet and people as opposed to profit and power, there'll be a flip. It is that simple. But how do we convince people? Saying, before you do anything, you should ask a question. Is it good for planet or bad for planet? If it is bad for planet, don't do it. Is it good for people or bad for people? If it is bad for people, don't do it. It's that simple. If enough of us did that, there'll be a change. Okay. I'll give you one simple example. In India, there is a custom that whenever you go to somebody's house, they give you a glass of water. Full glass of water. And most of the people take a sip and throw it away. 1.5 billion people probably throw away 3 billion glasses of drinking water every year. So I tell people, don't give everybody a water. Just change in behavior. And if they want water, give him just like scotch. Give him a little bit of water. Okay. Simple idea. How do you do that? How do you ask people to do it? 40% of the food world over is wasted. 40%. I run a foundation out of Washington, D.C., and they've done a study. 40% is wasted in rich countries after it gets to the table, because they leave it on the plate and they don't eat. 40% is wasted in poor countries before it comes to the table, because you don't have supply chain organized. You don't have storage. You don't have systems in place. Now, how can we afford to waste 40% of the food when we have hungry people all over the world? And these are not complicated issues. We just have to be sensitive. And each one of us will have to pay attention to this, and things will get done. So if you are head of an institute, your institute should have more conversation on redesigning the world. Let me know, and I'll be happy to come and be on Zoom with you.
Yeah, my question is, how do you move from individual behavior to a social behavior? Because when I evoke the movement,
it takes time. It takes time.
Example,
it takes time. It is not a simple thing, but people will take your example. Okay, if you change, world will change. Don't expect world to change before you change. Okay. So because
Wonderful.
I can change, the rest is my control, but I can't change you. Yes.
Great. I think we will keep this conversation going for sure. And
Yeah.
I'd like now to welcome Ronald. Ronald, nice to have you back on Global Peace. of course, we are also aware of the situation and the loss in your family, and our condolences to you. So please ask your question or make your comment, Ronald.
Thank you so much, Dr. Am I through, Doctor?
Yeah, but we
Yes,
can't see you because of sun in the back. Yeah.
Yes, greetings to all webinar participants, and I'm so grateful for the participants today. I'm Ronald Chimba of the Global Peace Know-How Game and the Golden Rule, which I use for moral government and making. When you mentioned about humanity, I felt need to kindly request you emphasize our being functional with the golden rules. The challenge, people talk about these morals, values, but they don't practice them. They remain just in theory. It's like a way of life. People are not practical, yet we need practical. We must demonstrate these values. Take an example here in our webinars. Dear participants, most of the participants don't share their email addresses. Even when you get a chance and you write to one, they don't respond. We have a lot of issues you would like to discuss. Knowledge sharing. Knowledge shared is knowledge improved. You have so many professors, you attend the over 40 webinars, but none, no one can really text you, can respond to you. So how do you expect to graduate from individualism to that social behavior that we are yearning for if ourselves we are the problem? And this is so common at the rate. What went wrong? We need to look into ourselves and we become theories of change living if we want to make a better place to live in. So I humbly request you, sir, to emphasize that people just talk about good things, but themselves inside, they don't practice them. This is the challenge in Africa. They don't wish for themselves. Humbly request you, we need to be functional. For example, I'm a student of the Golden Rule Ethics. It has principles, compassion, empathy, engagement, and unity. People know these things, but they just leave them like that. I humbly request you to address that. If you want to make a change and create a new Africa, a new world, we must be functional. We must not deceive ourselves. We must be true to ourselves. Thank you so much, Dr. George, for the time of being away. I pray that may the good Lord cover me and so many others who have lost their dear ones as we continue to build peace in Africa. Thank you so much. I'm Ronald Chimba.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronald. Maybe some you have a comment there.
No, I think
his
comment, I accept his comment that we each one of us will have to change. Nothing to argue about that. You know?
Perfect.
And if enough of us change, things will change. You know?
Lovely. So can we go to Joe? Joe, please, can you make your comment or ask your question?
Yes, I have a comment to make, right? I was thinking, one thing we don't really give enough credit is influence, you know? Influence, the power of influence. Because I've been thinking, because of all the hardships we've gone through, we've got used to grow through adversity. Thinking we need some against to be.
Sorry, Joe.
Can actually develop through influence and influence. Yes.
You are breaking. Maybe you speak closer to your microphone, maybe.
No, it's not that, George. It is.
Yeah, we have an engineer.
Bandwidth, because when he moves, let me tell you, when he moves his hand like this, bandwidth can't deal with it. Yeah. So he has to be very steady because then there is constant bandwidth.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Sam.
Yes, don't move your hand, because as soon as you move your hand, bandwidth requirement is too much.
All right, no problem. Yes, so I'm thinking we need to, I think human beings can actually grow through inspiration. We don't really need adversity. We don't need to be running away from something, because so many of us develop from seeing amazing people, and then we become amazing without going through you know, the opposite thing. And it's like, that's how every human being can in fact learn. You know, it's just we're too traumatized.
Agree.
Oh, I think you got that comment, Sam.
With you.
The role of influence.
Yeah. Ronald?
Okay. Did you get that, Sam?
Yeah, it basically, you know, I agree with him. He's saying same thing.
Right. Thank you. I can see also in chat there is a link, I think, shared by Thomas. Or you can continue with this conversation through the World Intellectual Forum Europe. If you go to that link, I thank you very much for sharing. And Ronald, you have a comment?
Can I just
or
comment
question?
on that?
Yeah. Ronald?
I just
Or maybe that's an old.
Okay.
Ronald, go ahead, please.
to say thank you so much, Doctor, and but I'm so thankful.
We need more conversation in Africa on change.
Yeah.
We need more conversation in Africa on building good leadership. Part of the challenge in Africa is leadership. You know, we have seen that in the past, that African leaders have really not done what we expected them to do as a society. So, you know, Africa has huge potential and it needs a lot broader conversation.
That's a great idea, really thinking about leadership. And I think that's why we need to redesign the world, and in Africa, certainly, and beyond, for sure. And now, Afiz Sufiano, nice to have you again on the forum. Please welcome.
Thank you, sir. And thanks, Sam, for the presentation. It was a wonderful presentation. If we can actually think for profit orientation to people's orientation. I think the experience of profit that we have in the last period, and we are able to experience people orientation than profit orientation, which shows that people orientation is possible, and it is something we can achieve if we keep and we are persist and consistent with our way of spreading the information from the human existence to humanity. You can actually achieve that, and thank you for that. And also, if you are talking about the leadership issue in Africa, we need to talk about the followership, because then the human activities in America, if they don't resist, we cannot actually have the form of what we have in America today. And if we African generally, as a citizen, we resist the action of our leader, they will come to their senses to change, especially when we have democracy in places that every 4 years or 5 years or 7 years, it depends on the country of the state, that when you go to election, we are going to tell you that the power belongs to the people. We need to decide who is going to be our leader. We need a sound and intellectual and the person that is well concerned about the people, not about his own selfishness. So thank you. So we can not only talk about leadership, we can also talk about followership in Africa. Thank you so much.
Agree.
Thank you very much indeed, Hafiz, for that comment. And I don't seem to see another hand or comment in chat. So I think we would slowly bring this conversation to an end for now, but we'll continue next week. Sam, have you got maybe a final comment to make or something?
Yes, I would like to make a final comment by thanking you, first of all, for the opportunity. I want to also thank all our participants for their questions and comments. I'm delighted that Thomas could join us. It is indeed a privilege for all of us to have Thomas with us. And, you know, people had some very interesting questions. Let's keep this debate alive. You know, I want to talk more about macro issues and not micro issues. At my age, micro issues are important, but don't matter. Macro issue is something we need to pay attention. Don't get dragged into details of fixing this and fixing that. Let's worry about larger issues of importance that people like Thomas talk about. Character, responsibility, humanity, sustainability, you know. And I once again want to reiterate the fact that if somehow we can switch from power and profit to planet and people in our thinking, we can change the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, one final, or two actually, because I could see that Thomas had a hand up and Wayego Amwangi, Susan, if you have just for half a minute, you can please share with us. Thomas?
Well, it was actually, I saw Wayego's comment, and
I see.
About traditional African societies putting humanity before profit. And I think we need to hear more from the African indigenous voice of Ubuntu.
Right.
And, you know,
Right.
and we need to learn from you about this. So
Yep.
I think our friend Wayego was going to speak to that. So go for it.
I see. Perfect. And Susan, do you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, George. Good afternoon.
Yeah. Good afternoon. Nice to join us again. It's been a long time. Welcome back to Global Peace.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
I have been listening to the discussion actually from the beginning, and I'm thinking about the concept of humanity, because you can also have people who do not have the human values. And so interesting that Sam is giving us a beautiful talk on the same. So, and he has talked about how we need to engage in a discussion on African leadership. But I'm thinking about how African societies, the indigenous African societies, taught the child values that respected the human being and the humanity in a person, as opposed to the profit that comes from it. But what happened with the advent of the Western powers through colonization, through the very many ways in which the Africans were colonized in education, in our value systems, then we as Africans no longer want to retain our African values, because with globalization, we want to adopt the Western values, and therefore we don't have the Ubuntu, the humanity that used to be there in indigenous African society. And therefore it would also be good for us to question the role of Western cultures, Western values that have been strongly ingrained in the African minds, in the destruction of the African values and the humanities in itself. Thanks, George. I think that's a discussion that we can take up, and we can continue through this discussion to talk about how the governance systems in Africa are what they are today, owing to the bad influence by Western societies and Western values.
Thank you very much indeed, Susan. Thank you very much, Sam, for this wonderful presentation.
Thank
For
you.
this wonderful conversation. Thank you, everybody, for your comments, participation, and for your attention. Actually, next week, we'll be talking about the state of human rights.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Hello.
I would like to request from our presenter if he can always be on ground as Prof. Thomas is always on ground for us. So if you always be in the webinar, it's a request. If you can fulfill that, you actually like that.
Say it again,
okay.
George. Can you tell me? Repeat. What
you are welcome to join our webinars because we need your ideas, and of course we need everybody's ideas, and you are always welcome to join us.
Thank you very much, George.
Indeed.
I appreciate that. You know, my problem is time. You know, I'm just so overextended, but I would love to join you. Let me know if there is something special. I'll keep monitoring. I do get your emails. I look at your emails. Thank you. But we need a broader audience. If we can get in Africa hundreds of people on Zoom, not 25, 30, why can't we get, 500 people on Zoom to listen? Then we are spreading our word. Right now, yes. I'm talking to 20 who are already converted. We are all like-minded people. Okay. I would like to talk to 500 young people.
Sure.
Let's organize that rather than talking to ourselves. Okay.
That's right. That's a perfect idea.
So if you want to organize 500 people, I'll tell you, once I had a professor from Harvard come to India. I was in India, and he said he wants to address students. I organized 500,000 students on Zoom, internet, to listen to him at the same time. That's what we need in Africa. Okay. Small groups don't matter because our population is huge. So everything we do must be at scale. Okay.
Thank you very much. That's well noted. And in fact, we are planning also to have an international conference where we'll be able even to meet, besides the virtual discussions.
Then have your seminar broadcasted on every university campus, in schools. Do that, and then I'll come.
Perfect.
Okay?
Thank you so much, Sam. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a nice day.
Thank you, John. Thanks for your leadership.
Thank you. Thank you very much.